There is a special quiet that exists in a life lived well. It's not the quiet of emptiness, but of contentment. The soft sigh of a house that has echoed with children's laughter, the gentle rustle of turning pages in a favorite armchair, the familiar hum of a refrigerator that has seen countless family dinners. For Eleanor Vance, age 72, this quiet was her symphony. It was the sound of a hard-earned peace. A retired schoolteacher, her classroom was now her sun-drenched garden, her students replaced by thriving roses and the occasional, insistent blue jay. Her legacy wasn't just in the minds of the children she taught, but in the deeds to this house, the carefully managed pension, the small but solid portfolio of investments, the estate she planned to leave to her only son, David. He visited every Sunday. The sound of his car pulling into the gravel drive was a punctuation mark in her week, a welcome one. She'd hear his door slam, a little too hard, always a little too hard, and she'd feel a familiar flutter of anticipation. He was 45, with a salesman's smile that didn't always reach his eyes, a man who carried the scent of expensive cologne and vague dissatisfaction. This particular Sunday, the air was thick with the scent of honeysuckle. Eleanor was in the kitchen, pulling a lemon drizzle cake from the oven, David's favorite since he was a boy. "Something smells like a memory," David said, coming in and kissing her cheek. His phone was already in his hand, thumb scrolling. "It's called food, David. You used to eat it before it came in rectangles," Eleanor said, her voice laced with a gentle tease. He gave a short laugh, not looking up. "Very funny, Mom. The world runs on rectangles now." He finally put the phone down, his eyes scanning the room, not seeing her, but assessing the property. "The house is looking good. Solid. You know, the market is insane right now. We could get a fortune for this place." Eleanor's hand stilled for a moment on the cake tin. "It's not for sale, David. It's my home." I know. Just thinking out loud." He sat at the kitchen table, the same table where he'd done his homework under her patient guidance. "How you feeling, anyway? You looked a little tired last week." "I feel perfectly fine," she said, slicing the cake. "Mrs. Gable and I are thinking of starting a book club. A real one, with wine and gossip." David leaned forward, his expression shifting into one of concerned sincerity. It was a look she recognized from his teenage years, usually preceding a request for the car keys or money. "Mom, listen. Dr. Evans called me. He's a little concerned about some of your test results from your last checkup." Eleanor frowned. "Dr. Evans called you? Why wouldn't he call me?" "He said he tried. Something about your phone going to voicemail. Probably that ancient brick you refused to upgrade." David's tone was light, dismissive. "It's probably nothing, but he wants to run a few more tests. A cognitive workup. Just routine at your age." A cold trickle of unease traced its way down Eleanor's spine. "A cognitive workup? David, I balance my checkbook to the penny. I can recite half of Shakespeare's sonnets from memory. What exactly is he concerned about?" "Memory, Mom. Little things. He mentioned you forgot your medication a couple of times." "I have never forgotten my medication," she said, her voice firm. She had a system, a small, blue and white porcelain pillbox, a gift from a student long ago. It was a point of pride. "See? Getting defensive. That's one of the signs." He said it softly, as if it pained him. "Look, it's just a precaution. I've already set up the appointment. It's at that new specialist center, Oakhaven. Best in the state. I'll take you, of course. This Thursday." Eleanor felt the conversation slipping away from her, like a boat pulling from its mooring. This wasn't a discussion. It was a presentation of a decision already made. She looked at her son, at the face she had loved and worried over for 45 years, and for the first time, she saw not concern, but a rehearsed performance. "I don't recall agreeing to this, David." "You don't have to worry about a thing," he said, taking a large bite of cake. "I'll handle everything. That's what sons are for, right?" After he left, the quiet of the house felt different. It was no longer peaceful, but watchful, oppressive. Eleanor stood at the sink, washing the single plate and fork he'd used. "He'll handle everything." The words echoed. She looked at her hands, submerged in the soapy water. These hands had graded thousands of papers, had comforted crying children, had built a life from nothing. They were not ready to be handled. A habit, born not from paranoia but from a teacher's need for order, saved her. Eleanor Vance kept records. She had a filing cabinet, a beautiful old oak thing, where every manual, every warranty, every tax return from the last 50 years lived in neat, labeled folders. In the top drawer, nestled between the manual for a VCR she no longer owned and her late husband's life insurance policy, was a simple, spiral-bound notebook. Her ledger. She opened it. The pages were a chronicle of her independence. Every phone call, date, time, duration, a brief summary. April 12th, 2:15 p.m., 8 minutes, Dr. Evans' office, confirmed annual physical, all results normal. No concerns raised. Asterisk, there was no record of a missed call, no message left. She picked up her ancient brick of a phone. It was a basic flip phone, sturdy, reliable. And it had a function David, with all his smart rectangles, had forgotten. It could record calls. She had discovered it by accident years ago, and had used it occasionally to remember complex instructions from her plumber or a recipe from a friend. It was a tool for clarity. The following Thursday, David arrived, brisk and efficient. The drive to Oakhaven was quiet. The center was sleek and modern, all glass and chrome, a place designed to intimidate with its sterility. The doctor, a man named Hemsworth with a cool handshake and eyes that never quite held hers, asked David to stay in the room for the initial consultation. Just for support, David said, his hand on her shoulder, a weight she wanted to shrug off. Dr. Hemsworth's questions were simple at first, then grew more abstract. "Eleanor, can you tell me what year it is? Who is the current president? Now, I'd like you to remember 3 words for me. Apple, table, penny." She complied, her voice steady. She drew the clock, she counted backwards. She felt like a student being given a pop quiz by a hostile professor. Throughout it all, David sat in the corner, nodding encouragingly, but his leg was jiggling, a nervous tremor she knew well. A week later, the results came. David came over, his face a mask of somber gravity. "It's not great news, Mom. Dr. Hemsworth is talking about early-stage cognitive decline. It's mild now, but these things can progress." Eleanor sat very still in her armchair. "I see. And what does he recommend?" He strongly recommends, that we start putting some safeguards in place. To protect you. To protect your assets. A power of attorney. Just a temporary measure, of course. Until we get a better handle on this. The words hung in the air, cold and final. Power of attorney. It meant handing over the keys to her life. Her bank accounts, her house, her freedom. "I am not signing a power of attorney, David." "Mom, be reasonable." His mask slipped, revealing a flash of frustration. "This is for your own good. What if you forget to pay a bill and the power gets shut off? What if you wander off? I'm your son. I only want to take care of you." "Taking care of me is driving me to my book club," she said, her voice quiet but sharp as a shard of glass. "Not locking away my checkbook." He sighed, a long, suffering sound. "I knew you'd be like this. Stubborn. Dr. Hemsworth said you might lack insight into your own condition. It's called anosognosia." He said the medical term with a practiced ease that chilled her to the bone. "I've already had the papers drawn up. Just look at them. For me." He placed a thick document on the coffee table between them. The silence in the room was no longer watchful. It was a battleground. Eleanor looked from the papers to her son's pleading, insistent face. A deep, profound sorrow settled in her chest, a cold, heavy stone. This was the betrayal. Not a loud, dramatic thing, but a quiet, administrative dismantling of her life. She made a show of reluctance. She asked questions she already knew the answers to. She let him believe he was winning her over with his patient, condescending explanations. And then, with a trembling hand that was only partly an act, she picked up the pen. "Where?" she whispered. "Right here, Mom. Next to the X." She signed. Eleanor R. Vance. It was her signature, but it was shaky, uncertain. The signature of a confused old woman. A look of pure, unadulterated triumph flashed in David's eyes, so quickly she might have missed it if she hadn't been looking for it. He gathered the papers as if they were gold. "You've done the right thing, Mom. You'll see. This takes all the pressure off." He left quickly after that, the precious documents clutched in his hand. The moment his car disappeared down the road, Eleanor stood. The trembling stopped. Her back straightened. The sorrow was still there, the cold stone of betrayal, but now it was encased in a layer of glacial resolve. She went to her oak filing cabinet. From behind a folder of old mortgage papers, she retrieved a small, black digital recorder. She pressed play. "I've already had the papers drawn up. Just look at them. For me." David's voice. Wheedling. "What is this, David?" Her own voice, feigning confusion. "It's just a standard power of attorney, Mom. It lets me help you with your bills, your taxes. It's temporary." It sounds so final. "It's not, I promise. It's for your protection. Now, just sign right here, next to the X." She stopped the recording. She had him. He had never explicitly told her what the document was. He had downplayed it, lied. But Eleanor knew this was only the beginning. A recording of a coerced signature might not be enough. He would move quickly now. He would be greedy. And greed makes people careless. She began her work. This was her new lesson plan. Her new curriculum. The systematic dismantling of her son's treachery. She bought a second, better recorder, a small device she could clip to her collar. She started a new, secret ledger, this one in a cheap, composition notebook she hid inside a box of oatmeal in the pantry. She became a ghost in her own life, a silent witness, her intelligence hidden behind a carefully constructed facade of increasing confusion. David's visits changed. They were no longer weekly social calls. They were audits. He arrived with a briefcase. "We need to talk about your finances, Mom," he said one Tuesday, spreading statements across a kitchen table. "Your investment portfolio is too volatile for a woman your age. We need to liquidate, consolidate, put the money somewhere safe." "Somewhere safe like where?" she asked, stirring her tea, her eyes vague. "Like my new business venture. It's a sure thing. I can get a much better return for you there than the stock market." The clip-on recorder captured every word. The small camera she'd installed in a fake smoke detector above the kitchen table captured him pointing to lines of text, his voice full of false confidence. He convinced her to consolidate her bank accounts, moving the bulk of her savings into an account he controlled for easier bill pay. She let him. She went with him to the bank, playing the part of the frail, forgetful mother, clinging to his arm. But her eyes, behind her large glasses, missed nothing. She saw the way the bank manager, a young woman named Chloe, looked at her with a flicker of pity, and then at David with a hint of suspicion. Eleanor made a mental note. Chloe. The day he came to talk about the house was the hardest. "This place is too much for you, Mom," he said, walking through the living room, not seeing the memories, only the square footage. The stairs, the yard work. "It's a hazard. I found a wonderful place. Assisted living. It has a garden and everything." Eleanor felt a jolt of pure fear. This was the final move. To take her house. To put her away. "I don't want to leave my home, David," she said, her voice quavering. But this time the emotion was real, a raw, primal terror. "It's not about what you want, Mom," he said, and the veneer of caring finally fell away, revealing the hard, impatient core beneath. "It's about what's best. I have the power of attorney. I can make this decision." She looked at him, her son, standing in the house where she had rocked him to sleep, where she had bandaged his knees, where she had taught him right from wrong. She saw a stranger. A predator in a designer shirt. "I need to lie down," she whispered, and retreated to her bedroom, not to sleep, but to plan. The cold revenge that had been simmering within her now reached a full, rolling boil. She had the evidence. The recorded conversations. The bank receipts. The documents she had secretly photocopied at the library before he took them. It was a mountain of proof. But taking it to a lawyer felt too abstract. Too clean. David would spin a story about a concerned son and a confused mother. He would use Dr. Hemsworth's diagnosis against her. It would be a long, ugly, expensive court battle. Eleanor wanted him to feel it. She wanted him to be exposed. She wanted the world he was so desperate to impress, his business partners, his country club friends, to see the rot at his core. She wanted a confrontation, not in a sterile courtroom, but on the battlefield of the life he was trying to steal from her. She decided on her venue. David was hosting a cocktail party. A fundraiser for a local politician he was courting for a business contract. It was to be held at his own large, pretentious house. The guest list was a who's who of everything he valued. Money, status, influence. He had, of course, invited her. "It'll be good for you to get out, Mom. See people." She knew he wanted to display her, the slightly addled mother, to bolster his image as the devoted son. She accepted. The night of the party, Eleanor dressed with care. She wore a simple, elegant navy blue dress, a single string of pearls, her mother's, and her large, clear-rimmed glasses. She looked every inch the dignified, retired schoolteacher. She looked harmless. David's house was all open-plan living and glossy surfaces. It was filled with the sound of clinking glasses and vapid conversation. David held court by the fireplace, a glass of whiskey in his hand, holding forth on market trends. He saw Eleanor and gave her a tight, performative smile, then quickly returned to his audience. For an hour, she played her part. She nibbled on a canopy. She made polite, slightly disconnected conversation with people who spoke to her slowly and loudly. All the while, her small, sturdy handbag hung from her arm. Inside was a flash drive and a simple, portable speaker she'd bought for this very purpose. The moment came when David gathered everyone's attention to give a short speech in support of the politician. The room fell into a respectful silence. Eleanor moved. She walked to the central island in the kitchen, a vast slab of marble that was the heart of the room. She placed her handbag on it. All eyes were on David, who was smiling, basking in the attention. "My son is a very persuasive man," Eleanor said. Her voice was not loud, but it was clear, cutting through the ambient noise like a bell. A few people turned, amused. David's smile tightened. "Mom, why don't you let me finish? He persuaded me I was losing my mind," she continued, her voice gaining strength, filling the room. "He persuaded a doctor to write a false diagnosis. And he persuaded me to sign a document that gave him control over everything I own." The room was utterly silent now. David's face was a thundercloud. "Everyone, I apologize. My mother's condition. She becomes confused in the evenings. It's called sundowning." A few people nodded sympathetically. Eleanor smiled, a small, cold smile. "Is that what it is, David? Sundowning?" She reached into her handbag and pulled out the small speaker. She connected it to her phone with a single, deliberate click. "Let's play a game. A memory game. You remember those, don't you?" She pressed play. David's voice, slick and reassuring. "It's just a standard power of attorney, Mom. It lets me help you with your bills, your taxes. It's temporary." Eleanor's voice frail. "It sounds so final." "David, it's not, I promise. It's for your protection." The room was frozen. David stared, his mouth slightly agape. She pressed another button on her phone. A new recording. David's voice, impatient. "Your investment portfolio is too volatile. We need to liquidate. Put the money somewhere safe. Like my new business venture." Gasps from the crowd. She saw the politician take a step back. Another recording. David, his voice hard, cold. It's not about what you want, Mom. It's about what's best. I have the power of attorney. I can make this decision. She turned off the speaker. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the frantic beating of David's heart, a rhythm she could almost feel across the room. She looked at the faces of his guests, the shock, the dawning horror, the disgust. She had taken his prized world, the world of appearances, and she had shown everyone the ugly truth festering beneath. That, Eleanor said, her voice ringing with the authority of a teacher who has just delivered the most important lesson of the day, is not confusion. That is evidence. She picked up her handbag, walked to the front door, and left. She did not look back. She got into her own small, reliable car and drove away from the house of lies, back toward the quiet symphony of her own home. The fallout was swift and merciless. The story spread. The bank manager, Chloe, having seen the news reports, froze the accounts David controlled and contacted Adult Protective Services. The State Bar Association launched an investigation into the lawyer who had drawn up the predatory power of attorney. Dr. Hemsworth was placed under review by the medical board. Eleanor hired a fierce, brilliant lawyer of her own, a woman named Angela Costas who specialized in elder law. With the mountain of evidence Eleanor provided, the recordings, the ledger, the receipts, David had no defense. The power of attorney was revoked. Every penny was returned. The civil suit for emotional distress and financial abuse was settled quietly, but substantially, out of court. David lost his business, his reputation, and his wife, who left him, horrified by what he had done. Eleanor never pressed criminal charges. The public humiliation, the financial ruin, the complete and utter isolation from the world he had coveted, that was his prison. It was a colder, more precise form of justice. One afternoon, months later, she was in her garden. The roses were in full, glorious bloom. Her book club was coming over later. The quiet was her symphony once more, but it was a different composition now. It was the sound of peace, yes, but a peace that had been fought for and won. It was a peace that knew its own strength. A letter arrived. It was from David. She held it for a long moment. Then, without opening it, she fed it to the small fire she had going in her outdoor fire pit. She watched the flames consume the paper, the words of apology or accusation turning to smoke and ash. They no longer had any power over her. She picked up her watering can and tended to her roses. The past was a lesson, not a life sentence. The greatest revenge was not in the downfall of another, but in the unwavering, quiet dignity of your own survival. The world believes it knows the strength of a gentle soul, but it often mistakes that gentleness for weakness. It forgets that the deepest roots are not the loudest, and that the oldest trees, having weathered the fiercest storms, stand the longest. In the end, the most powerful weapon against a lie is not a shout, but a perfectly kept record. The truth, patient and meticulously documented, waits in the silence for its moment. And when it finally speaks, it can shatter a world built on deceit. The teacher had given her final lesson, and the student, her own son, had failed. But she, Eleanor Vance, had passed. She had graduated with honors from the School of Hard Knocks, and had earned the one degree that truly matters, the unshakable knowledge of her own worth.